Hi everybody, broadcasting from my home office again. I wanted to share some thoughts on Parshat VaYeitzei. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. Fleeing for his life, setting out for a land to which he has never before been, our ancestor Jacob settles down for perhaps the most fitful night of sleep in his life. The discomfort of using a nearby rock as a pillow aside, Jacob is immersed in a state of contradiction. On one hand, he has secured the blessing of his father, which has guaranteed him abundance and a robust connection with the Holy One. But on the other hand, the means through which he obtained that blessing have put his life in danger. The promise of better days ahead, of security and sustainability, might have been cold comfort sleeping exposed in the desert air. So, he settles down to sleep and dreams of a ladder. This is perhaps one of the most famous dream images in the Torah, and maybe world literature at large. Far predating the innovations of Sigmund Freud, in Judaism we have long acknowledged the significance of the act of dreaming, and what is provided therein. Bar Kapara, commenting on this verse, proclaims, "There is no dream without an interpretation." Indeed, a large chunk of the final chapter of Masechet Brachot effectively is a rabbinic dream interpretation manual. What appears to us is trying to tell us something, and we have to engage with what it provides to elicit meaning from it. Medieval Spanish commentator Ibn Ezra brings our attention to the actual imagery in the dream, both in its particulars, but as setting a paradigm as well. The word for ladder, sulam, is an anagram of the word for symbol, semel. The striking scene with which Jacob is provided in his dream provides the model for us in terms of how to relate to that which we ourselves see, and how we must bring our own faculties of interpretation to divine what it can mean. So what does the ladder mean? Let us begin by attending to the verse in question. Jacob dreamt, and behold, a ladder stood on the ground, its head reaching to the heavens. And on it, angels ascended and descended, and God stood atop it. In Breshit Rabbah, the Amoraic Midrash on Genesis, Bar Kapara, mentioned above, interprets this scene as symbolizing the sacrificial service at the temple. This interpretation draws on the association of the sleeping place of Jacob with Har Zion, the future site of the Beit HaMikdash. Bar Kapara sees the ladder as symbolizing an offering, in this case a sheep. The ground on which it stands is the altar, and the head of the ladder stretching to the sky is the Reach Nichoach, the pleasant scent of the offering, which reaches the heavenly abode. The angels, fascinatingly, are interpreted by Bar Kapara as humans, the priests who serve in the temple. Now this is a rich reading of the scene, but it lacks the correspondence necessary to make the interpretation of the dream images compelling. Accepting that the angels represent our most refined and lofty humans, the Kohanim, and that the base of the ladder is the altar, we are left wondering about the identification of the ladder with the korban, with the offering. This reading makes sense in that sacrifice does not itself ascend to heaven, but is rather the medium or the vehicle for the ethereal, animalistic incense that does reach the heavens. However, the priests are not ferrying it up to heaven and back, and when it comes to a korban, while we hope that we receive blessing in kind, the temple service wasn't a dialogue, but rather an opportunity to practice generosity, giving of ourselves to God. Following Bar Kapara's immolation interpretation in the Midrash, unnamed rabbis declare that Jacob slept at Har Sinai, the site of the giving of the Torah. Fascinatingly, the word for ladder, sulam, and the name Sinai have the same numerical value, as does the word for symbol, semel. In place of Bar Kapara's association with the temple service, the rabbis here see the ladder scene as a paradigm for how to relate to Torah. Now this is a compelling association, as Torah, like dreams, or dreams, like Torah, demand our interpretation and our attention to help them generate meaning. While the initiatory idea is compelling, The rabbis do not give each element of the scene a corresponding meaning, as Bar Kappara did. The latter symbolizes Sinai, which too stretched from earth to heaven. However, while the learning of Torah does provide the venue for human contribution to Torah, the giving of the Torah was just that, a bestowal from God to us, from top to bottom. The angels in this dynamic would then only descend. There would be no companionate ascent. While the temple service and eventually Torah would become devotional foci for our people as our religion developed, neither of them possessed the dialogical dynamic clearly denoted in the dream. On the latter, the angels ascended and descended. They go up, yes, but they come back down. It cannot symbolize the unidirectional modality of either human generosity, as we see in sacrifices, or divine bestowal in the revelation of the Torah. So, what can these furtive angels symbolize? In the medieval French Perush Chizkuni, we find an account that attends to the aspect described above. It compares the ascending and descending angels to human beings using a ladder, who first go up to the attic to get something and then bring it back down. This satisfactorily explains why both verbs are used. As the Chizkuni says, the angels first went up and then came back down and stayed for a while. Jacob realized then that this place was divine. After all, if this were not a place angels could reside, then the verse would have said, they came down and then went back up. This interpretation from the Chizkuni gives meaning to both dynamics in their order, which are included in the verse, ascent and then descent, not just singling one out. The angels went up to attain blessing from God, so they could bring it back down to earth. Now, oddly, the interpretation that is best able to provide meaning for the whole of the dream images is the one closest to the dream image itself. Instead of decoding the dream to refer to far-flung Mount Sinai or Mount Zion in the Chizkuni, we see that the image of the ladder is best understood as signifying, well, a ladder. It is a means of ascending, not to escape, but to descend afterwards, to return, bringing down what one has attained. On Brachot, page 55b, amidst examples of rabbinic dream interpretation, Rabbi Elazar provides us with a point of methodology, that every dream accords with its interpretation. That is to say, there is no objective decoding of a dream. The meaning of a dream is found in its interpretation. In the context of the Talmud, this principle focuses on the poetic skill of the dream interpreter. But here, I would like to apply it to the dreamer themselves. The dream and its meaning is tailored to the person having it, since the dream is an expression of and a response to what the dreamer is experiencing. The dream is conditioned to the dreamer. The first two interpretations of the latter scene offered examples of glorious moments in the history of Israel's connection to God, the majestic spectacle of the temple rite, and the transcendent advent of revelation when the Torah was given. Both of those events served as fonts of meaning for our religion, whether in providing a framework for worship or the pursuit of meaning through study and practice. However, in this moment in our Torah, Jacob was not yet Israel. He was still a young man scared for his life, an individual on the way to individuating. The dream was God's means of offering Jacob precisely what he needed in that moment. He was frightened, afraid for his life, perhaps conflicted about what he had just achieved. He was exposed, out in the desert, unsure if the blessing promised to him was actually manifest. The angels, coming up and then back down the ladder, showed him that there was still a connection between him and the Holy One, that God was with him in the midst of danger. That the angels, after going up and coming down, would stay with him for a while, helping him see that the earth he inhabited, that the life he lived, could be a dwelling place for the divine. As he realizes when he awakes, surely God is here in this place, though I did not know. Awestruck, he says, how wondrous is this place, nothing other than where God resides. So may it be. Good Shabbos. I wanted to share, as a bonus for the video Dvar Torah, wanted to share Nigun from the Springsteener Rebbe, or the what's his name? The Seeger Rebbe, from the Seeger Rebbe. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are brothers, sisters all. Every rung goes higher and higher. Every rung goes higher and higher. Every rung goes higher and higher. We are brothers, sisters all. Every rung just makes us stronger. Every rung just makes us stronger. Every rung just makes us stronger. We are brothers, sisters all. Every rung goes higher and higher. Every rung goes higher and higher. Every rung goes higher and higher. We are brothers, sisters all. Good Shabbos. Let's climb that ladder together.